Good afternoon to the stream. Now that a very impatient person has disappeared because all these comments to hurry up made me do is wait. I'm now going to be working on completing this chain which I started practicing last weekend, and I'm going to do some more work with this. I've now got to just work out which is the end I'm working with. The blue ones, okay, so I need some rings out. I'm going to tip the camera down a little bit. Angle it a little bit more. We're going to play about with a new camera setup for I'm fooling myself. Camera setup for doing this and other similar things. So I'll get a few rings out. I'm going to be opening and closing some. This practice piece has turned into an actual piece that I need to complete, and it wants to be about I think it wants to be an 8-inch bracelet, which means I've got about another 4 inches to do, because then 3.5 inches, because a clasp on the end will make it clasp is about 1/2 inch, so it will make it 8-inch overall once a clasp is associated. So I need to open a fair few rings, close a fair few rings. And I'm still amazed by the fact that rings manage to join themselves together like this. I'm just taking my time, because I could open these a little bit with the pliers and then close them again, because I want the blue ones to be closed. But if I just take a little bit of time and just separate these out by hand, then just gives me a little bit of time to settle into what I'm doing. So I'm making chains out of these rings. They're aluminium rings. Move that camera and just I'll send to that in a minute. Let me just separate these rings from each other. I don't need to do the pink ones. Let me just adjust this camera like that. There we go. That is a weird sort of okay. Oh, I guess, yeah. It's a weird angle that the camera's at, and I've forgotten I've cropped the image from one side, so the camera's twisted in a really weird looking angle. Anyway, right, blue rings I want to close, pink rings I want to open. So I'm going to do, sorry, hopefully, let's see whether this I'm experimenting with a new camera angle for doing this, because I have a habit of not being able to keep on frame when I'm doing this. So I'm trying to give you guys a sort of a similar angle to that which I see. Which I hope will be a little bit successful. Can't quite get in exactly the same position. This hand's really in the way, isn't it? Can't quite get right behind the camera. This maybe won't work too well as a position. Let me see what I can just do to move this camera a little bit. Excuse me, this is going to get a little bit sort of wobbly and camera's zoomed down. Let's see if that's moved over a little bit. Okay, it wants a bit of focusing, I think. There we go. Right, let's see if that works any better in terms of being able to see what I'm doing. So I'm making jewellery, chain, bracelets and necklaces out of these. They're called jump rings. They're made out of aluminium and then they are anodized, and to create these well, lots of colours really, 17 different colours. These are called sky blue and the others are pink. And what I'm doing here is, because these rings have been cut with a saw rather than with a pair of cutters, the rings can be closed, which is as they naturally come off. They've got a slight twist as they're manufactured, a twist with a slight gap between them, and so by manipulating them here with the two sets of pliers I can close that gap up and also twist them very slightly such that that gap all but disappears without very close examination. And that's what I'm trying to do here, and sometimes even I can't see the gap when I've closed them, which is great. That's exactly what I'm after. I've got two rings here that have joined themselves back together again just on the desk. Okay, the pliers I'm using have got no teeth, so the effect of that is that they don't actually whilst they can, they don't. Actually, I should put a bit of tape on them, really. But they don't scratch the rings. If you try to do this with pliers that had teeth, as many pliers do, then what happens is the teeth bite into the coating and effectively scratch it. Which you don't want. Obviously you want some nice pretty coloured rings that don't have scratches or anything like that on it. Aluminium, anodised aluminium, is relatively difficult to scratch. You can scratch it. I say relatively difficult. You know, you can quite easily rub this against a brick wall and it will get completely scratched. You know, it's if you start rubbing it against an abrasive surface, it will scratch. There's no doubts about that. But sort of normal daily wear, they tend not to scratch. You know, even the rings are rubbing against each other, they tend not to scratch each other. You might eventually wear the coating down, but it's not a specific concern. It's not something that happens overnight or something like that. Aluminium is also a quite a warm metal, so it doesn't specifically feel cold when you're touching it. Doesn't aluminium? It has kind of a warm feeling to it, and to be honest, these chains what are made up are incredibly tactile. I, for one, certainly find myself just playing with the chain, just because of it's all really smooth and supple, and can just spend ages playing with the chain. Okay, so I'm just closing up all these blue rings I have in front of me, and then I'll open the pink ones up, and then I'll actually start continuing with a bracelet that I'm in the process of making, which will, and the process of making chain out of these rings is called weaving, and the way in which they're put together is called a weave. So a little bit of odd terminology to learn in a way when you start doing something like this. So a weave is the way the rings go together. A pattern is the way in which colour is used, for want of a better description, or the way in which sections of weave go together. So you'll see me, like I just was doing there, adjusting, just making slight adjustments. The idea of what I'm trying to do is make it look as though the ring is seamless. So I can run my finger over it and I can feel, if I haven't quite matched the two sides of the ring up, so there's still a slight twist in it, you can feel a really sharp edge, because it's in this particular case it's got quite a large gap. But if I manage to close this successfully, a little bit more, then I don't know if you possibly can't, the gap is in exactly the same position it was, but it's almost, well, it is hidden completely, and sometimes you can't even feel it. I can just about feel it by running my finger over that, or my thumb in this particular case, but that's the ideal way of closing these rings. It helps, obviously it doesn't scratch you while you're wearing it, but it also means that it doesn't catch on things like you know, you might be wearing a woolly jacket or jumper or something like that, so it doesn't catch threads or anything. And also it won't have a tendency to catch on itself and therefore, you know, open up slightly. So that's a load of blue ones. We'll do some pink ones. Pink ones are easier to start with because I'm just opening them, not closing them. I'll close them when I weave them together. So this process of opening them is so that a ring will actually fit between the opening. The pliers that I'm using, I'm using two different. Well, I've got three different kinds actually in front of me. All the pliers that I'm using are plain. They're not serrated. They're flat. So the inside, as you can see, has got no teeth. It's smooth. And all the pliers are exactly the same. They're smooth internally like that. And then really the differences between them then come down to the shapes. So these are they just get called I forgot what they are called, but they're essentially a wide nose. The wide nose is quite good for working on rings because you've got a large surface contact area, which means that you've got better control of exactly where the twist occurs. You want it to be right opposite the opening. That way, when you close them, the ring stays flat and doesn't have a sort of an awkward sort of kink in it. Now the pliers on the left hand side, they're called a chain nose. They're called a chain nose because of this fine point on it, which allows you to get them in amongst a chain. Now there's another difference with these on the left hand, on my left hand. If you look at these, you can see how they form like a V shape and they close flat to each other. The ones in my left hand are called parallel jaws, so they're exactly parallel to each other. When they close, they stay parallel to each other. Now that's quite useful. It's quite useful because when you grasp something with normal pliers, it has a tendency to want to push it out because it's a V. As you close it up, you're tending to want to push it out. Now friction holds it from doing that, but sometimes if you're applying a fair bit of force, or you don't quite have a ring grasped, it can make it easier for the ring to shoot out, especially if you're trying to manipulate something. Then that sort of angle adds to the things you have to manage. The parallel jaws, there is no sidewards force. You're just literally squeezing against the ring, and for that reason they can often be a little bit more easier to do certain things with. In this particular case though, they're a little bit harder to manipulate because we're moving more mechanical parts to keep the jaws parallel, so they're harder to manipulate than this type, or actually I normally prefer using this, which is ergonomic, and I've yet to buy a pair of wide nose pliers of that style. Okay, well there's a few pink ones there. We'll open them all, we'll come back to that later. Okay, so what I'm going to work on is this weave here. This is called it's what's called a half Persian weave, and there's at least two types of that: a 3-in-1 and a 4-in-1. It designates basically how far apart the rings are, sort of. So, for example, this one here I've just put on. This is a 3-in-1, and this is a 4-in-1. So you can see it's a lot more dense, shall we say. So 3-in-1 is less dense, 4-in-1 is more dense. And they've got a slightly different shape as well. This one's kind of V-shaped when you kind of look at the profile and examine it. This is more flat, like a rectangle, although technically I guess it's like a flattened X, but it's more of a flat sort of shape. So now then, I've got to work out where I was with this and which end I'm working on. Excuse me while I just work out where I was. Blue ones were it can be quite awkward when you're doing this. Well, Persian I found quite difficult to start, and this is the first one I've ever done, so I found it quite a difficult weave to start with, but then once I got going it was dead easy. The only thing is I've forgotten how I was doing it. I'm sure. So that's what I'm just currently trying to work out now, is I think it's this side. Yes it is, there we go. One set, and then yeah. So it took me a while to work out how to do this particular weave, and now let's see if I can remember. Now that I've got the right starting position, it'll take me a couple of rings probably to work out how to there we go, how to get back into this. And then I put a blue ring over the top of there, and then I close it. It's a little bit, I might have to move this camera. It's a little bit awkward working around the camera, but let's see if we can keep it where it is. And then turn that back over, and that ring goes there. Yeah. I was trying to do this so I could try and keep the camera and let you guys have a view of what it is I'm doing, but I'm not sure quite how successful it's being. I want that ring over the top of there, thank you, because you're of course just seeing me fiddling around with the rings. Am I doing this correctly? Nope, that one I've just put in is wrong. I've put it through the wrong place. As you can see, it's got a nice pattern, but this last ring is out of pattern. It's in the wrong place. So what I've got to do is open that last pink ring and reset it. Now to open it I need to find where the join is, which is there. Just take that blue ring off. Okay. So I've got what I did is I went through the underlying pink ring that's in this position here, and I shouldn't have done. It's meant to lie on top of it, not underneath it. Not. I'm guessing you guys obviously don't quite understand that, but it's sort of a terminology I use to help myself understand what I'm doing, but I'll show you in a second. Close that back up. So have I done it again? Nope. Now I've got it right this time. So you can see the herringbone effect. This ring here I had inside before, so it didn't look right. So this is well, I suppose this is the second time I've worked with this weave, because I started this last weekend. So this is the first chain that I've ever done, so of this particular weave. So I've not had much practice at doing it yet. One of the things I might challenge myself with it shortly is have I forgotten? I have got a feeling I've forgotten to put a ring on. We'll find out in a minute. It's trying it with some smaller rings. Something's wrong. I've done something wrong. Yeah. I have misplaced this ring. So we'll try that again. Let go, thank you. I did forget to put a blue ring on, I think. Yeah, I did. I thought I'd forgotten to put one on, and that's why that ring I just did looked to be misplaced. It looked odd because the blue ring that it should have passed through was missing. Open that up, put that through there like that, and then that ring wants to go in there. That's the ring I missed. So I didn't make a mistake on the next on the next one. I'd made a mistake on this one. And that means now when I put this ring through, which goes through that ring, that one goes over that side, and I put a blue one in the middle. I remembered that step this time. By the way, if you hear a clicking when I'm doing this, it's perfectly alright. That's the two rings just the ring just catching its edges when I close it up, and that basically means I've closed it about as close as I can get, which is good. So start and get back into the hang of this. It becomes easier once you know. Hook two rings, pass that over the top of there, and then grasp it. Oops, there's it. And then put a ring on there. Get rid of the hair. So once you've sort of got back into the muscle memory, I guess, or however you want to describe it. Once you've got back into the I'm trying to think of the word. The skill isn't quite the word I'm looking for, but once you've sort of got back the way in which to do it, just the pattern that you need to follow, then it sort of becomes easier again. Ah dear. That ring wants to go over the top of there. There we go. Now this is actually becoming one of my favourite weaves, is this. Just mainly because I kind of enjoy the way it goes together. Whilst I enjoy the way it goes together, I don't necessarily always enjoy the fact that a ring won't go where I want it to go. You kind of need patience at times. Like that. I want that ring to go on that side. It's important it goes on this side. To form the correct weave, because this ring, the new ring, has to go in a particular place, and if it doesn't, it throws the weave out. It doesn't line up properly. Relatively easy to fix, but better to get it right in the first place. So this then just becomes a simple matter of going through two rings and placing that ring over the top of the pliers, which is what I've done there, like that, and then just grasping it in the middle. Now technically, I guess this is called chainmail. But one of the things I have found very quickly when talking to people is if I start off by saying this is chainmail, then most people immediately think of armour, sort of things that knights of old used to wear and things like that. Now whilst that is chainmail, this of course doesn't really bear much resemblance to it. I hate hairs. And so you've then got to explain the difference, which is purely sort of just this is an aesthetic way of putting the rings together rather than an armour based way of putting the rings together. And I don't think you tend to get much armour that's pretty pink and a nice light sky blue. No reason I guess why you shouldn't, but you wouldn't use these particular rings for true armour. They're aluminium, and stronger metals will be used for armour, like steel, or I guess in the past they might have used things like iron, or perhaps even bronze. Something isn't right there. Oh no, it is. So catch 2 rings, put that ring over the top of there and grasp it. That allows me to put the blue one in its right place. A vast condom. Good afternoon, welcome to the studio, thank you very much. Relaxing to watch. I suppose it is, yes, because there's a couple of people I watch who do this. Someone like Mr. Boombati, for example, who is actually making some armour at the moment. And yeah, I do find it quite relaxing as well, as you say. When you're doing it, sometimes it can be a little bit frustrating. And it's about the only thing that I do which on stream which is kind of frustrating. Sometimes when a ring just won't quite go where you want it to go. You know, I want that to go over there and it'll keep slipping off. For, you know, just physics, but then it gets a little bit frustrating for me at this end. Hope the camera angle's okay, by the way. I'm experimenting with a slightly new angle for doing this. Creative, you know, for creative, it can be challenging to get a camera angle that I don't get in the way of all the time, and you can actually see what's going on. And to be honest, with jewellery, quite often in some of the other camera angles I've used, I have a tendency to move out of frame so you can't see. So I'm hoping this angle actually works to enable you to see what I'm doing and I stay in frame. I started this chain last weekend. I haven't done any more since. It was just on stream last weekend, and I did it as a practice because this is the first time I've tried this particular weave, and they all take a little bit of time just to learn the technique of producing it, or the sort of little, I won't say tips, but sort of little methods that make it easier for you to do things. For example, the way in which this is usually taught is different to the way in which I'm doing it here, but I just find this way easier. Other people find the other way easier. So little things like that that you learn by practicing, and this already, you know, whilst this started out as a practice piece, somebody already wants to have this from me, so it's now turned into an actual production item. If there's anybody that's watching that does have questions about this, or of any of the other crafts that I do on stream, then you're quite welcome to ask. I don't mind. Vascom. It's I suppose it's like anything, Vascondom. It's a little bit of practice makes a bit of difference, you know, in that it can be more frustrating when you're not quite sure what you're doing. I know when I started this, it took this particular one, it took about 20 minutes for me to get more past the first 5 rings. because I didn't know quite what I was doing, so I was kind of following picture instructions and things like that, which weren't fantastically clear, or rather the pictures were clear, but you had to understand, you know, it was talking about laying the rings out in a particular way in your hand, and if you put it down to pick up a ring, they all lost their position, and it got really frustrating at the start. But as you can see, once I got past that stage, and I think I could do it a lot quicker these days, because now that I understand what I'm trying to do here, and as you can see now I just can't get hold of things, but now that I sort of understand what I'm trying to do, I think I can probably start this a lot quicker. And so, you know, that start was a little bit frustrating. Next time it probably will be less so. But there's always the case where something just won't quite go where you want it to go. So I don't know, I find it relaxing to do. I hesitate to say it's the craft that I enjoy the most, because they each have their own, you know, fun bit to do, whether it's the punch craft or whether it's the carving. You know, they each have their own qualities that make it fun to do. And I'm not sure whether I'd like to do this sort of thing, you know, 8 hours a day. It is nice to swap to another craft, but I must admit I do really enjoy doing this. Possibly because it's faster as well than you know, carving a piece takes several days at best. You know, within an hour I can finish a chain and turn it into a bracelet or something like that. So it could be partially the speed that makes this particularly enjoyable, but I do find it fascinating you know, how you can just, you know, slot a ring through like that and you get this pattern out of it, and I just find that amazing. Now I'm just going to measure how long it is, because for a bracelet this wants to be, well, it's going to be for an 8-inch bracelet. Now the clasp is about half an inch long. I'm not sure what clasp I'm putting on this one, so it needs to be about 7.5 inches. So I want what, 1, 2, 3, 2. Well, actually, I only want another 2 blue rings on this to make it 7.5 inches long. So. Which means another two pink ones. So let me just open one of these pink rings. Helps if you don't throw your pliers all over the place. I've forgotten which end I'm working for. This end. What? That's where frustration comes in. How many rings do I think I've used so far? I'll take that out and do it again. Given that there's it looks like there's about four rings per half inch, and this is well, I can count them. Let me have a count. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41. There's 86 rings in this chain, so it looks like we're probably going to use about 90 rings to make an 8.5 inch bracelet. all I did was count the blue ones, because there's exactly the same number of pink ones as there are blue ones. Then I took that over the top of there like that. Slip a blue ring on. And then the last pink one. Then I'll check the length again. And then I shall get a clasp out. Different bracelets also use different number of rings, of course, depending on the weave that's used. Something like a Byzantine would probably use in the order of 150 rings for the same length. But instead of being in pair, well, everything's doubled up in that particular case with the Byzantine. So if I move that further into the frame, you can see. So with this ruler alongside, we're about 7.5 inch. Well, there's a couple of more. There's a ring got to go on each end, which will join it to whatever fastening I'm going to use. And also by putting a ring on the end, and I'll use a smaller ring, it'll stand up, which allows the fastenings to lay flat. That's kind of an odd thing to say, but if I show you on this one here next to it, this is also a half Persian, similar weave, but it's more an open version of it. This T-bar, for example, the ring it goes through is horizontal, so, and the weave lies horizontal. So if I was to try and put the T-bar through the weave, it would want to sit like that, sticking up from your wrist, which isn't very comfortable. So use like a little silver ring here to just turn it through 90 degrees. Now this one's got a couple on it, because with a T-bar you've got to get the bar plus a little bit of chain through the other end, which is a loop. And the rings of the bracelet itself are too big to actually fit through. So if I just put the T-bar literally on the end, you would never be able to close it, because you can't get the ring through the gap. So there's a couple of extra silver rings, little tinier ones, which do fit through, which allow you to close it. Let me just open that back up. So I'm going to get a clasp out for this. And I've got a choice really of what to use for this. I've got silver and gold here, and I've got I've got 4 different choices. I've got quite a large T-bar ring here. This kind of is suitable for this. It's about the same-ish sort of size ring wise. It's not overly large compared to the actual bracelet itself. It does have the advantage that they will just go through, but nah, it's a bit of a squeeze. But it's a similar sort of size, and it's nice and sparkly. I've got the one I showed you a moment ago, which is like a decorated item. Just Jessup, good afternoon, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome to the studio this afternoon. And again, it's a comparable size. In actual fact, it's an almost exact match. So that kind of would be in keeping. The silver is going to look better with this because it's quite pale. I think the gold kind of stands out a bit too much. Rathburn, good afternoon. Thank you very much for following me in the studio. That I do appreciate very much. And I have just realised that what I need to do is move just bear with me a second whilst I just reposition that alert that comes up because it was being hidden by the camera. So good evening, Rathburn. Thank you very much for follow and for helping me sort out the fact that I got my OBS set up a little bit inaccurate. Yeah, the gold kind of clashes a little bit with the lightness, so I think we're talking about silver for this one. So this is what they call a T-bar, because there's a ring with a bar, T-shaped. Try and keep it on frame. The other thing I could go with is a lobster claw clasp, like this. And I don't really like that, so I think I'm going to go with the silver, this fancy silver thing. The only difficulty I've got is I know the person that is going to be wearing this, and they have a particular skin. The skin oils dissolve the silver plate or the gold plate, so I'm kind of a little bit. So if I go with lobster claw clasps, I've actually got some sterling silver ones here, and that doesn't happen for certain people with silver plate or even gold plate. What will happen is the skin oils or the moisture on the skin will actually dissolve the silver or the gold plating off of things like this, and will leave the copper, which is usually the surface underneath, which is a brownish sort of colour. Will leave that, and it cannot. Sometimes it looks okay, sometimes it doesn't. That doesn't happen with sterling silver, or even with what they call filled gold, because it's well, sterling silver, it's solid silver. The filled gold is a lot thicker gold than plating, so that doesn't happen. But I'm not really sure I like the clasps on this. Let me get one out. This is one of those things when you're doing jewellery like this that you have to start and make decisions like, do I like that or not? Let me just shut the lid on this. So effectively I'd have, I don't suppose that's too bad. I suppose that's too bad. You're not seeing that very well. The fact that we're talking a pale colour, the silver is reflecting the colours a little bit. Let's try it with that. It's a sterling silver clasp. So I'm just going to put that down to one side, and I'll just put these other sterling silver clasps back, because unfortunately sterling silver isn't cheap, so I don't want to lose them. I just took them in there. I keep them in the bag because then I can tell the sterling silver ones from the silver plate. I'll have to get another case at some point, but not just yet. Now then, I want a smaller just getting out some more rings because I want a smaller ring to join these together. Yeah, these will do. Incidentally, talking about rings, there's a whole raft of colours there. I'll open this up and show you some of the colours for those of you that haven't seen them before. I'll tip this up a little bit, hopefully I won't tip them out. We've got silver. I'll point with something else. I've got a screwdriver here. So I've got silver, white. This is called seafoam. It's kind of a light minty green. Yellow. This is like a light blue. It gets called sky blue. We've then got pink, gold, champagne, which is kind of like a light brown. This is lavender. It's a lightish purple. Unfortunately the camera does tend to make it look rather like a blue. Don't know why, just something about these particular cameras that don't like purple. So that's like a light purple colour, lilac lavender. We have orange. This is purple. Now this is a really rich purple. Unfortunately it looks blue but it's purple. We then have royal blue, and this is a blue, a green, red. This is called bronze, which is kind of a brown really. Then we get black ice, so that's kind of a gunmetal colour, and then black. These are all anodised aluminium, so they don't tarnish. I was getting some silver out. They don't tarnish, they stay shiny. They're quite resistant to scratching. I'm going to need just two. And you know, they're quite resistant to scratching, and they maintain the shine, which is quite nice. So I just need two rings. Yeah, they will go through that one. So I shall just open these up. So I've picked smaller rings because these will stand perpendicular. They'll stand at right angles to these. So I'm just going to capture those last two. Actually, I do want another silver one out. Actually, I probably no, we'll see. I put that over the top of there, and I'll close this up then, and that's captured the lobster claw. Actually, have I done that? Yes, I have. That's right. So what will happen then is the lobster claw will now lie flat on turn it over that way. So the lobster claw now lies flat because that little ring makes the transition between the chain and the lobster claw itself. If I tried to put the lobster claw on just one of these rings, it would have wanted to stand upright like that on your skin, and then it would tend to catch things and stuff like that. So little ring like that. Now then, actually I am thinking about this end. Whether or not I actually want to put that on at all. This blue ring here is kind of loose on its own. It doesn't it's not forming part of the pattern as it stands at the moment. So what I'm going to do is I was going to take this off, But what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to use this to capture these two here. I'm going to close it. And I'm wondering whether or not to actually put a... Oh, that one's closing better. No, I am going to take that blue ring off, because the blue ring is going to want to stand up, because it's not part of the weave. It's going to want to stand up, and that will be irritating. I'm going to put this on, but I'm going to get another silver ring out. No, I'm not. I'm thinking as I'm speaking, and I'm kind of just imagining the way this lies, and I'm going to try and just see how easy it is to fasten this with that ring there, because when you use this clasp, you've got to capture that like that. You can see now how it lies flat basically. That didn't seem too bad. We'll leave that and see whether the person who's got this one is happy with that. I can't fasten lobster claws on myself, and besides this one is a bit too small for me. I need 8.5 inch. Let me just measure this and check it is yeah, exactly 8 inch, almost to the millimetre. And I know that's a mix of measurements. I'm doing that just off frame there. I guess you do know how lobster claws work, but some of these come with this little ring permanently fastened in. Some come with what they call open or closed rings. This is this is an open ring that's been closed, but sterling silver this is, which means the whole thing is made of I forgot what sterling silver is. It's something like about 98% silver. Lobster claws can be a little bit awkward for people to use. Quite often the T-bar here is a lot easier to use it for, especially for things like a wrist where you do, a bracelet where you're doing it one-handed. I suspect it. Well, I'm going to try, see if I can do it. I think this one's just about long enough, because you can kind of you can kind of manipulate it's not quite big enough for me, but you can kind of manipulate it a lot easier to get hold of that. Oh, I've done it. I'm not going to actually put this on, I don't think, because I might have difficulty getting it off, but it's a bit easier then to manipulate it for somebody trying to do this one-handed, because they can just do that. Lobster claws are a little bit harder for people, because you kind of have to open it and hold it and then sort of put the chain around as you can see, trying to get it, and you don't want to twist in it, generally speaking, so you end up holding it against yourself and things like that, or doing this sort of thing, laying your wrist down on the desk and then trying to get hold of a clasp. And yeah, you see what it means. That putting these on can sometimes be frustrating, so it certainly pays in making this sort of thing to think about what clasps they do put on. But also, some people prefer a lobster claw. Sometimes they look better than T-bars or the other styles. I mean, there are other styles as well, I just don't have any. So you get like S shapes or horseshoe shapes, which are like a hook. And for those you need a reasonably, I will say a reasonably tight bracelet, not a really tight one, but a reasonably tight one, because the S-shaped ones, or the horseshoe-shaped ones, literally the only thing that's holding the clasp on is the fact that it's trying to pull the clasp apart. If I was doing like a sterling silver version of this and I used an S or a horseshoe clasp, I'd be putting a safety chain on it as well, because you don't want to lose a sterling silver. Don't want to lose a bracelet full stop, but sterling silver is obviously quite expensive, so you really don't want to be losing bracelets. But anyway, so that's a completed bracelet. It's called a half Persian weave, and it's a variant of that called 4-in-1. The 4-in-1 actually refers to each ring passes through 4 other rings, whereas this one is 3-in-1, so each ring passes through 3 other rings. Essentially, yeah. But the 4-in-1, 3-in-1, that sounds really sort of technical. So closer and a looser weave is really the best way of describing it. In fact, yeah, I was going to say, I was just checking something. I've given this one a particular name, which is more early sunrise. I've called this because it's very much like the horizon, where you've got the blue sky and the pink, just the pink of the sunlight shining through or starting to come up. So very much like a very early morning sunrise. I do like to give these names rather than calling them by their weave, just because it's easier for people to remember. Actually, this one's not bad, because this one with the silver clasp, and again it kind of fits, because early morning you've kind of got the last of the silvery moon. Sorry, the last of the silvery moon as the sun's rising, and I guess it ought to be that way, because you got the pale sunlight just peeking up into the blue sky. Yeah, indeed. Sorry, Vascon Condom. I wasn't a little bit slow picking up on chat, but yes, you're right. The lobster claws can be. If you've got a little bit of nails, it's not too bad, but it's certainly a lot easier to put a lobster claw clasp on somebody than it is to try and put one on yourself. They're okay for necklaces because you can use both hands, or anklets, but not bracelets. Okay, so that's that one done. Now then, I am going to I've got two choices about what I do now. Oh, sorry, I was just thinking then, this might look good with a rose gold clasp as well on the end. Lobster claw clasp. I'll have a think about that one. I don't have one in stock, but I shall have a think about that. Now then, I've got a couple of choices about what to do now. Now what I'm thinking about doing is putting that box somewhere safe. What I'm thinking about doing is trying to do that exact same weave, just a little bit of a test weave in some little tiny rings which I've got here. Let me put these pink ones away and the blue ones. That way then I don't get them mixed up or drop them anywhere. So I don't let go. I don't want to be trying to sort these out. Okay. So big rings are potentially easier to manipulate. What I've got here are some little tiny ones like that. I am just wondering if I can do a 4-in-1 Persian with those. They may well be a little bit too small. I may have to use them. These are temporary labels, but they are frustrating when they fall over like that. 3.3. Okay. 4.1. So they're smaller. I've got these out of order. 0.1. Yeah, I think the little tiny ones are really too tiny, but I'm going to have a go at just doing a few, a little tiny test weave. So I'm just going to get a few blue and silver rings out. See if I can do it, and also just see what it looks like, because sometimes just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it. They don't always look good. Actually, I might get an even smaller pair of pliers out. Yeah, I'll try it with these. So I'm going to close up these blue rings like I did the bigger version. And then open up the silver. I almost, well, I do need a magnifying glass really to do this. Sorry, I'm off frame, but these are tiny. I'll move the camera up a little bit. Now this could well be an exercise in frustration. When you work with small rings, it always takes longer as well. Just because they are so tiny, they're a lot harder to manipulate because of the size. They're also a heck of a lot easier to lose. So this is where you could see me getting I'm not about to rage quit, but this is exactly the sort of thing where that could be possible. So for and whilst I don't normally swear, this also is a time where that might be possible. I will, however, do my best not to do that. I very rarely swear, so it's not very likely, but I do get the feeling that these are going to be interesting. They may well be a bit too thick rings, these. You can't do every single weave. Uxie 1288, thank you very much for following. That is most kind of you. I do really appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, you can't use every ring for every weave. There is two things govern whether you can use a ring for something, and that is its diameter, the diameter of the ring itself, or more accurately the internal diameter of the ring, and the actual thickness of the ring. For some things you need the actual space, the internal diameter, to be able to fit things through, but for others it's actually the thickness of the ring that controls whether it actually works or not. So just having a set of rings like this, I've got just picked these out of my box, these actually may not work at all for this Persian weave. It may be, effectively a complete disaster from that perspective. They're looking a little bit thick, but well, we shall see. We shall try it and find out. Interesting indeed, yes. I chose the words carefully. Right. Now then, I was thinking that probably what I could do with here is something like a paper clip. So this particular weave, the half Persian 4-in-1, starts with 3 rings on my starting ring. And then, now that I've sort of learned, I put 2 ring that through 2, and I get hold of it very carefully. Now if I've understood this pattern correctly, and this is where it gets fiddly, I guess, with these tiny rings, that ring wants to go on there. So I've got switch to my finer nosed pliers. I'll tell you what I have. Let's see if I can do this with a cocktail stick. I wonder if I get hold of that side there. Theme Hospital, good afternoon. Welcome to the studio today. Now, here you learn about how patient I am before I give up trying to do this. That ring wants to go over the top of there. Again, this I am sure will get easier. Okay. Will get easier once I if indeed it's possible to do with this with these rings, will get easier once I've got the first couple or so on there, like that. Okay, that's really tight. I'm not sure this is going to work with these rings. No, it's not. I really don't think that's going to work with these rings. It's close, but not quite. Oh, I've got it on. Okay, let's see if I can close it. I did. Now then, I do not want to lose that. Sorry, excuse me a second. I'm gonna one, two. This as I mentioned, the starting bit is the real hard bit, because having just put those two rings through like that, I've now just lost the pattern or lost the weave. May well be that I've not quite got it right. No, I haven't. I didn't quite get that right. What I need to do is take this silver ring back off when I can find the start of it. Or rather, it may well be right, but I just can't find the I can't find the right place. So that wasn't the starting ring. That was the wrong ring. So I'm now going to take one of these blue ones off. I'm going to take that one off. We'll start this again. Excuse me, I'm not looking at chat at the moment. I will do very shortly, but hopefully, yeah, so do I. I mean, I think, I mean, unless I get very good at doing it at this size, I probably wouldn't want to do one for a commission. Or rather, a commission would probably be really, really expensive. So that is going through, so that's got to, that goes through there like that. Does that go through there like that? And that's it that way around like that. Something about this strikes me as not right, but I'd go through there and there, which is precisely what I did a minute ago. Yeah. So I go through that one, and I pick that one up on that side, that one and that one, and I pick this ring up here. Do not lose contact with that, thank you. And that one there, and tiny rings, tiny rings. What I'm doing now is talking to myself just to try and alleviate a little bit of frustration in doing this, and otherwise I am likely to go wow and decide to stop, and I kind of want to just see if I can do it. So a blue ring should go on there, and then I should be able to close this like that. No, I've done something wrong with that. You know what I'm going to do is I'm going to put those away, and I'm going to try with a slightly larger ring. Rather than get too they're yeah, they're almost the smallest rings I've got. What I'm going to do is try with the slightly larger one. So there. Yeah, let's try with a slightly larger one. Let's have a few of these out. And a few of these. So open the silver rings, close the blue ones. These are a bit larger, so hopefully they'll be a bit easier to manipulate to start with. So if I can do it with these, I'll then have another go at doing it with the small ones. It's getting started. It's getting that starting thing right. That's the trick. And if you can do that, then it becomes, as I say, it becomes a lot easier. When you first start, you've got next to nothing to hold on to. The weave itself doesn't sit as it should do, or will do once you get some work done on it, and you can lose the which ring should be where very easily just in the few starting rings. And so once I get past that initial stage, then I should be able to do a reasonable thing. I like small though, so if I can do small it would be nice. Will take longer to do than the bigger rings, but do a few of these. Okay. One, two, three. Now then. Decidedly odd because I can actually see the pattern that I want to follow. Let's go through those two, and then this third ring goes over the top of there, like that. Then I take a blue ring and I slot a blue ring over the top of there. That becomes the ring of the next step. Fold that back like that, and I get hold of go through that one, and that ring wants to bother. I was trying my best not to lose that. That's the fourth one I've just put on there. Excuse me while I talk to myself while I'm doing this. So I want that ring, and that one. That one, and that one I want over the top of there, like that. I think I'm doing this right. Fury pt2, good afternoon, welcome to the studio today. Welcome to seeing whether Zaraganart gets extremely frustrated by what he's trying to do here. Yes, something's off. Okay. All else fails. Start again, if necessary. Okay. That's the first. No, I give up. I'll start again. Now you can understand why why the first one took 20 minutes to start to do. I wonder. See if I can give myself something to hang on to. So, it's my first ring. That's like that. I know that I want this ring here to go through there and there. I want to put a ring onto that, and then this ring wants to go over the top of that, like so. I think that's the right way around. But given that I can now hang on to that gold ring, I'm hoping it will help me do this. No, it hasn't. Well, I still haven't got it right. Anybody getting frustrated yet? We'll go through that one and that one. Sorry I'm not saying a great deal. I am sort of concentrating on what I'm doing, but surprisingly I'm not getting well, I'm currently not getting sort of frustrated by this, even though it's not quite going how I want it to go. You stay there, ring. I grab that. And I put a new blue one over there and close that up. Okay, and close it up properly. I'm not bothered about scratching rings on this because this is just a small practice piece to try and work out if this is actually going to work or not. Now I know that blue ring is my number. The gold thing there is on the very first blue ring. But I'm guessing what I should have done is put that blue ring on it's that one. I'm not getting that. I'm not. Yeah, it's this very first. It's this first silver ring that I'm not getting right. I'm going to try and put it on, I think. So. That goes through there. Like that, and another blue ring goes through that gap in there. Excuse me guys, I'm concentrating quite a lot trying to work this out. Now that should lie like that there. No, I still haven't got that right. Well, at the moment, Fear Reaper, it's not so bad because whilst I'm making a mess of it, I'm still making progress. If that makes sense, because so I'm not finding it that bad at the moment. It's a little bit sort of upsetting, you know, having to keep trying. It goes through those two and it goes through that one and then picks up a ring on the other side of that. I know exactly what I'm trying to do. And in some ways, I'm kind of convinced I'm getting it right all the time. Anyway, all the time, but I'm just not quite laying things out properly to be able to see it. Now then, if that's right, I'm just gonna go for it, so to speak. That one and that one, not that one. That one I want to go through there. And I want to put a blue one on the end of there, and By Jove, I think he's got it. That one, and that one. I think he's got it. Hey, way. Yep. Now then, he says putting that down really carefully because I want some more of those silver rings. I want a few more. Oh, what size was I using? That size? Yeah, they're bigger. So I was using that size silver rings. I'll just go as far as doing these. I'm not going to, well, at this point in time, I'm not going to make this into a full chain. It was an exercise in seeing whether I could do it more than anything else. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I want 7 closed blue rings. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's not too bad here, and it's a little bit warm in the studio. It's 24 degrees, although I do have an air conditioner running behind me. It's not making a great deal of impact actually of cooling things down, but I'm not too bad. And one of the things that one of the things that suggest Fear Reaper is actually just do it anyway. Because one of the things I've found with me, and it's me, obviously everybody's different, is that something like that I kind of use like an excuse. I'm not suggesting that you are, but if there's something I don't particularly want to do, it's very easy to find a reason why not, shall we say. And so if it's something that I know I'd like to do but can't quite get the enthusiasm to start, then I'll just do it anyway, because I know, I know what I'm doing, so to speak. I know that I am looking for a reason not to do it, and I'll do things like, oh, I'll just go make a cup of coffee. Well, while I'm drinking it, I can't make rings, for example, while I'm drinking. So I'll just watch a video, and then, oh well, I'll tell you what, I'll just watch the end of this video. Hey, that was interesting. I wonder if there's another one. I really should do my rings. I'll tell you what, I'll just watch this one video and then I'll start. Oh, it's tea time. I better have some tea. and I'll start straight after tea. And you then of course find that the rest of the day is gone, and it's time to go to bed. and you haven't done anything at all. Which is kind of one of the good things for me about streaming is, or the evening streams at least, is okay, I don't have to stream, you know, it's not mandatory, but it kind of made me avoid that situation, because I you know, if I don't, you know, because I can't turn the stream on and just sit there. I've got to do something on the stream. So it has kind of taught me a little bit, or you know, encouraged me a little bit to actually do something that way. That's it. So I know I want to go through that ring, yeah, and pick that one up there. And I put a blue ring on that. And as I mentioned at the start of trying to do all this, it's if you get started, once it's started, it works. It's getting those first few rings in place, because now it's kind of holding itself in place as a pattern. I know where I'm trying to what I'm trying to do. Although these rings are it's quite challenging to close these rings, because they are quite close to each other. I want that ring, and I want, no, I don't want that, I want blue and blue. That blue one goes over the top. Flip it over the top, grab that there, and close this up a little bit. Yeah, these rings are really tiny. Could do with getting my I'm off camera, aren't I? I could do with almost getting a magnifier out to do this with. That one, that one, and that one, and then get hold of that end there. These fine nose pliers are helping a little bit. They only just have enough room for these pliers. Okay. That one, and that one. As you can see, I'm managing to do it. I think this is perhaps a bit too stiff, which suggests that the rings are not quite, that they're the wrong size really for this. They're thin enough, they've got a thin enough diameter to do it, but they're not, but they're the wrong size. It's rather a tight weave here. I'm going to finish these last 4 rings. That one, and that one. Nope, that's right. Actually, I'm not going to put a blue one on the end of that. I'm just going to close that because it will leave a ring hanging if I put a blue one on. Okay, those rings are the wrong size. You can do it, as you can see. It's a real. It is a full half Persian. It is a half Persian. It is a 4-in-1, but as you can see, it's a really tight weave. Is that? You can sort of see it. The X shape there that you get with this, but that's not a good one for anything. That might, on its own, one ring here has now slipped out of position right at the start. Something like that on its own might work okay as an earring, for example. Let me take this gold ring off of here. See if I can put the silver one back in the correct place. It's supposed to sit like that. But it might do as a, you might just do something like this as an earring, or a little section in a bigger chain, for example. But it's really tight. So wrong size rings. Doable, but wrong size rings. It's nowhere near as flexible as this is, for example. So I shall put those rings back in there. And what I'm going to do actually is just try with a slightly larger ring. So you get to see a little bit of the frustration again, or what could be a frustrating exercise, which is the start Now these rings are it's the same diameter, sorry, the same thickness as the ones I was just using, but they're a slightly larger diameter. So they're almost a millimeter bigger. Kind of wow. Lots of sorry, Fear Reaper, I did see your message, but it's just occurred to me what you've just said there, and that is, don't worry about showing what you're doing. If you're worried about sort of making a mess of it, and you don't want to, it's kind of embarrassing to make a mess of something, but even the best artist in the world almost certainly messed up the first canvas, painting, picture, whatever it was they did first. It's what they do when they mess up that matters. Did they learn from it, either by correcting the mistake on the piece that they're working on, or by not making that mistake the next time? And yeah, for a creative stream, for example, you've just seen me mess up half a dozen times. Okay. It would seem that I'm not bothered about that, and strictly speaking, I'm not. But it would be nice to have done this, perfect first time. And it's kind of obvious that I made the mistake because I took it apart. But if you're drawing, for example, and you make a mistake, if you don't tell anybody it's a mistake, half the people watching you won't know. And half the people that are watching you that do know will realise that you're correcting it, and that's part of creating art. So I wouldn't worry about showing or streaming stuff where you make a mistake. If anybody expects something to be perfect the first time you try it, then you're probably not interested in them watching you anyway. If they're going to go away, Fear Reaper, and go, it's not very good, and well, you're not that bothered about them watching you. I mean, quite literally, the worst that can happen, really, is you don't have anybody watching you, but you're still practicing. And practice is what will make you better. And if you don't start practicing, you won't get better. And, as long as you don't start being worried about numbers of people watching you, then you treat your stream as though people are watching you, whether they are or not. What you will find is people will. And then you may get some people that have expertise in drawing, for example, that may offer you tips if they see you doing something and you're having you're struggling with something. So it can be useful to stream anyway. I admit it does take a little bit of confidence, though, to stream something that you believe you're not very good at, but that and you think you're going to make mistakes in. I agree. It takes a lot of confidence to do that. But as I say, you're falling into the trap of thinking that everybody else who's watching will know every single mistake that you make, and they won't. Okay. Fair enough. I mean, if you don't want to stream, you're going for your dinner, but for anybody else, if you don't want to stream, you don't want to stream. There's no, you don't have to force anybody into that. Right, I'm going to have a go and see if I can get this one to start a lot easier than I started the other one. I've sort of done 2 or 3 starts now, so maybe I ought to be able to get this one a lot better. Or am I going to mess this one up as well? So, we start with the rings like that. I think I'm going to put the gold ring on here again. And I want to do it through there. Right. So ignore the gold ring for the minute, but that should help me work out where my starting point is. And just switch. No, I was working with those. So I should go through that ring. I should go through that ring, and that ring should go over the top of there. And I know my big thumbs are in the way. Like that, and I should get hold of that's once closing. Get hold of that and put that ring over the top and close. Now that goes that way, and providing I can do that, that goes that way. There we go. Done it again somewhere. That's it. There we go. Like that. Like that. Like that. There we go. Maybe. I have no idea how that's done that. But okay. Sort that out afterwards. Because I've got a pattern here, so that ring wants to go through there, there, and there. Then I put that ring on top of there. Just bear with me guys, I will be right back. I'm just going to turn off the mic. Yeah, okay, I am back. My lovely wife has just come in. She's been out this afternoon. Take that off of there because at this moment in time I think it's causing me a problem. I've lost the start of this again. That's it, I think. Okay, he's back. Let's put another ring through. I'm not sure, I think I've got a mistake in this, but we'll have a look in a minute. Some mistakes it's easier to fix afterwards when you can see exactly what's wrong once the pattern's developed. That ring goes like that, and I want to do that. But I think this one looks like it's going better. So this one, I can't remember if I unravelled it to start with and had to ravel it again, or okay, there we go. I can't remember whether I got this one right first time or had to start it again, but at least it's gone quicker to get this one going. At most one false start. That's the frustrating bit. There we go. Ooh, are we going to get a visit? I kind of like you said no. Felix has just appeared in the studio. No, he's not going to, not with all the rings around. He will struggle and rings will go all over the place if you try and put him here. He has to come of his own accord. So that's one of our pussycats that's just appeared in the room. You may well have heard him on the mic. That's Felix. He may appear, he may not. But he's one of the models for the pyrographic art that I did not so long ago on stream. Right, I think I've got the hang of this one, so I'm going to use these silver rings up and then that I've got open here. I don't think I need to go much further than this. And then we'll see how flexible this particular set of rings is. So this last silver ring, which will go through there, there and there, and we'll close this one up without putting a blue ring on it. Then I'm not left with sort of a floating blue ring. Okay, so this one I did have a mistake in it. I don't know if you can see, it's there, that particular silver, these rings here, this one has gone behind or between these, and it should have been on the outside. So one of these two needs repositioning. I'll probably reposition the back one here. It's possibly going to be a little bit easier. So what I've got to do is just find where the end is. Which is there. I open it up. Just enough to slip the silver ring, which I haven't quite opened it up enough. Slip the silver ring over the top of it into the correct position, and then I can close that up again. And there we go. And now we've got the proper weave in there. It looks like a herringbone when it's in the correct position. I'm afraid that's a little bit out of focus, isn't it? There we go. So you get the herringbone look when it's in the right position, and it's it looks okay, and it's quite flexible, which when you compare it to this one, which isn't flexible at all. So we know that this one is suitable. So that's probably the smallest rings that I can do. I think the really small ones that we tried earlier are probably going to be just too tight. Another version of the one that failed. So I do know I can get down to this size of bracelet or necklace, which is quite a delicate size. So what size is this? I've forgotten what size the rings are. Rather than trying to, I was about to say rather than measure, but so they're about 5mm across, which is about, what are they? About 1/4 inch, give or take a little tiny bit across. Whereas the when you look at it next to its big brother, which is this one is sort of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's 4. The big one's 4/10 of an inch. Actually, this smaller one is about 2/10 of an inch. So it's almost half the size. I mean, look, it looks really tiny, really tiny next to it. But I quite like that, actually. I like the tiny things. The big ones are nice, but the tiny ones are nice as well. So yeah, despite the fact it's actually half, oh, well, it's not quite half the size, I suppose, but there we go. So that's a nice little half Persian, 4-in-1, which means the 3-in-1 would be a similar, would probably work as well with those. Okay. Now then, let me put those blue rings away. I'm going to have to make a note of all these, because then if I want to make another one, I know what size rings work. That's part of the reason for just playing with them now and seeing what works best. No, I don't want to try full Persian. I am wondering whether I want to start another one just at the moment. I would like to try out doing what's called a helm, but I might try that maybe tomorrow rather than today. That blue ring right at the start is wrong, I think. Yeah, it is. Yes, I'm not sure. It's always difficult right at the start here. I'm not altogether sure whether there's a blue ring here, whether it's in the right place or not. There's something not right. Oh, it's okay. It's just because there's a... no, there's a silver ring. Yeah, that silver ring wants to go inside that blue. That's why it doesn't look right. Even though this is a test piece, I'm going to correct that. Is that the start? No, it's not. Where's the start? There. If I've got this right, that blue wants to go there. There we go. That's it. There we go. Right. That looks right from that side, and it looks right from that side. Yep, that's it. There we go. Final bit of correction. I say it's only a test piece, but it's nice to have a test piece correct. And now if I look at it, I should in theory be able to weave it almost from either side. But there we go. Right, I think think what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a rest. In fact, I'm going to have my tea. Seems like a good idea. It's a little bit warm here in the studio, so I'm going to get a cool drink. I've had fun today. We've completed this chain, which was about 4 inches long when we started. It's now a 7.5 inch long chain. This is called a full Persian, sorry, a half Persian, 4 in 1, which is kind of a mouthful to say. So given the colours with this one, I've given this a name, which is early sunrise, because of the blue sky and the pale pink sort of sun. Just, you know, as in an early morning, it's misty, the sun's just rising, you've got a pale pink glow on the horizon, and we've got a silvery moon, which is the clasp here, solid sterling silver clasp, which is the moon, which is just disappearing away. I've got this the wrong way around, so just disappearing below the horizon. So early sunrise. There we go. So we finished that, and then we had a go at doing exactly the same weave as that in just about the, well, we did try the smallest rings I've got, and I gave up trying to sort it out. I was making a mess of it. So we tried it in a slightly larger one, and it worked. This is exactly the same weave, but this is really tight. Effectively, it's too tight. Okay, if you wanted a little stiff bit of weaving, maybe for something like a necklace, earrings, but they kind of don't really, you know, earrings tend to want to be nice and fluid, and this one isn't. Could kind of do it like a little charm, or maybe you know, join a chain at each end, a thin chain, to make just like a little chain highlight, even though it is still really stiff. Not great for much purpose. I suspect as well it would get slightly harder to weave as we move on, but it was quite challenging to do, but we proved it worked. Tried it then with slightly larger rings, and this one is definitely more fluid, more like it should look, and that's, you know, quite possibly a candidate to make an actual bracelet or an anklet out of. Or if you wanted a really delicate necklace, then these rings would work. Anyway, what I'm going to do is, as I say, I'm going to have a rest, so I'm going to say thank you all for watching. It has been great fun having you around. If anybody's watching that isn't following, then of course I'm going to encourage you to do so. Then Twitch will email you when I go live. You can of course follow me on Twitter, and then you will be tweeted when I go live, a bit more immediate perhaps. And as I'm fond of saying at the moment, I tweet when I go live, not when I have breakfast, so quite safe in that respect. But if you just want to follow me, try and follow me by catching the next stream. My next stream will be 8 PM tonight. That's in 3 hours time, give or take a bit. I normally stream from about 8 PM in the UK, 1900 hours, or as I say, in about 3 hours time, 7 nights a week. Saturday and Sunday afternoons, like this afternoon, I may well do an ad hoc stream if I'm available. And I started this stream about 3 hours ago. It tends to be from about 2 o'clock, but there's no real standard time on a Saturday or a Sunday in the afternoon. So hope I'll see you all again in 3 hours time. Have a good afternoon. Bye bye.